To start off, on the offside front of the engine compartment, you've got your pipe that takes washer fluid from the washer fluid tank to the washer fluid jets. Directly in front of the pipe, you have your nut that attaches the strut push rod to the hat of the strut. This component here that I am pointing at is what's known as a load-bearing member. The load-bearing member or load-bearing members are used to support the weight of the vehicle. Moving the camera down here, you've got your mini fuse and relay box. Moving the camera down here, you've got your pressure cap and expansion tank. In front of the tank, you've got your upper radiator support. The radiator support is the upper mounting point for your radiator module. Located just behind the upper radiator module, you have your cap for your washer fluid neck. This component here is your headlight. On each headlight, you've got an adjuster to adjust headlight aim. The reason why you need to adjust headlight aim is just in case the vehicle was involved in a collision or the alignment was knocked out of position. So that's why you've got an adjuster. To the right, you have one of your bumpers. Now, bumpers are used to align the bonnet in the correct position and also to stop the bonnet from bending. Moving the camera to this location, you have your low pressure and high pressure caps for your air conditioning recharge valve dust covers. Now, this pipe contains two pipes, and you can see the high pressure pipe here for the high pressure part of the system. Now, this is your low pressure pipe. Moving to the center, you have your oil filler cap. To the right of the cap, you have your dipstick. Behind this cover that is used to reduce noise of the component, you have your direct injection fuel pump. Now, this line here takes the fuel from the pump to your fuel rail. The fuel rail's job is to distribute the fuel to each fuel injector at equal pressure. To the left of the pump, you have your valve cover. Now, behind the valve cover, you've got your camshafts and valve train. To the left, you've got your engine mount bracket. Inside the engine mount itself, you've got rubber that reduces noise and vibration going into the cabin. On each side of the engine and transmission, you've got longitudinal rails that attaches the engine and transmission to the chassis. Moving the camera up, you've got your brake fluid cap and tank. Moving the camera further rearwards, it's not easy to see, but you can see your master cylinder and brake booster. Moving the camera to the back of the engine compartment, you have a heat shielding. Heat shielding in an engine compartment is used to protect components from heat damage. Also in the back, you've got sound deadening to reduce noise going into the cabin. Behind the sound deadening, you've got your pressure reducing device for your air conditioning system. You've got two pipes to the right that take in and out engine's coolant from the heater matrix. Moving the camera to this location, you can see each of your coil packs. Moving the camera to the right, you've got your pipe that takes air from the air filter to the inlet of the turbocharger. Inside the air filter box, you've got your air filter element. The element's role is to try and prevent dust and debris from getting into the engine. Getting dust and debris into the oil of the engine is not good news at all. This assembly here is to reduce induction roar going into the cabin. If you follow this pipe down here, it takes you to your air intake. Just behind the air intake, you have your 12-volt battery. On the battery itself, you have your cover for your 12-volt positive terminal, your negative post, and your battery monitoring sensor. The sensor is used to tell the engine control unit battery health. The reason why manufacturers put covers over their positive terminals is to prevent accidental short circuits. Moving the camera left, you have your vacuum pump. Because of lack of vacuum air inside the intake manifold in a turbocharged engine, a vacuum pump is required to supply vacuum to vacuum-powered components like your vacuum-powered brake booster. Moving the camera left, you have several different pipes in this area and several different components like coolant pipes and other components. This is your electronic throttle body electronics. The electronics contain your electric motor that moves your butterfly valve for your throttle body. By controlling how open your butterfly valve is, you control how much air goes into the engine. Moving the camera over here, you have your alternator. The alternator is used to power the 12-volt system when the engine is operating. So the battery does not power the 12-volt system when the engine is running. The alternator is used to power your 12-volt system, not the battery. Now these holes use air to pass air through the stator windings and thus cooling the alternator down. On any alternator, you will always have a diode assembly. The diode assembly is there so it converts the alternating current from the alternator to the direct current that's needed to power your 12-volt system. Below the alternator, you have your air conditioning compressor. Moving the camera more aft, you have your auxiliary belt system. The system is used to drive other auxiliary belt systems. Looking down onto the transmission, you've got your transmission selector cables. The selector cables are used to move the selector forks inside the transmission. When you operate the transmission selector, you move the transmission selector cables. Behind one of the selector cables, you've got your steering rack. Inside the steering rack, you've got a rack with a toothed bar that moves left and right. When you turn the steering wheel, you turn a pinion that moves the rack left and right, and thus turning the wheels left or right. Thank you very much for watching my video, and goodbye.